Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today we shall be discussing about the aerial photography. But before we start the module, I hope till now you all are aware about the basic concept of space and time, the fundamentals of remote sensing, as well as the various space agencies that exist in India and the world. You'd also be aware about the principle and functioning of the global positioning system. You'd also be aware as to how the data is acquired through remote sensing methods, be it aerial photography or the satellite remote sensing. So, in this module, we shall be focusing solely on the concept of aerial photography, how aerial photography has evolved through the last 150 years, as well as the basic concepts like what are the types of films that are used, what is the principle behind aerial photography. At the end, we would also study the applications of aerial photography and appreciate the advantages that the aerial photography has over the ground based conventional methods. To begin with, aerial photography is the process of capturing of photographs of features of the Earth's surface from an elevated position using high resolution camera that is mounted on platforms such as helicopters or other light aircrafts, which include aircrafts, balloons, drones, pigeons, rockets, kites, vehicle mounted poles, and parachutes. The mounted cameras may be triggered automatically or remotely. Handheld photographs may be taken by a photographer as well. There are certain things that are taken into consideration while dealing with the fundamental understanding of aerial photography. These includes concepts such as scale, film, focal length, overlap, stereoscopic coverage, fiducial marks, roll and frame numbers, and flight lines and index maps. We shall be dealing with this concept in the subsequent slides. So, but before that, coming to the history of aerial photography. As you all know, the first known aerial photograph was first practiced in 1858 over Paris, France, by the French photographer and balloonist G.F. Tournacon, who is popularly known as Nadar. The landscape that was captured by this photograph was of the French village of Petit Bicêtre, taken at 80 meters from the ground elevation using a tethered hot air balloon. However, the photographs did not survive for long, and therefore the presently oldest existing aerial photograph is titled as Boston, as the eagle and the wild goose see it. It depicts Boston from an altitude of 630 meters, and this image was captured by J.W. Black and S.A. King on October 13, 1860. In addition, hot air balloons, pigeons, kites, and rockets are also used to carry the cameras in the air to capture the photographs. Aerial photograph from a rocket mounted camera was taken for the first time by the Swedish investor Alfred Nobel in 1897. From an aeroplane, the first successful aerial photography was taken in 1909 by Wilbur Bright. Further, the famous English meteorologist E.D. Archibald initiated kite aerial photography in 1882 with the help of an explosive charge on a timer to capture successful photographs from the air. On 24th April 1909, the first ever use of a motion picture camera was mounted on an aircraft over Rome in a silent film shot, Wilbur Wright and Sienna film machine. Further, the use of aerial photography rapidly developed during the war to verify and record enemy movements and defense systems. In 1913, Germany adopted the first aerial camera, a Gauss. Further, the French army began the war with numerous squadrons of Blériot observation aircraft that was laden with cameras for survey of the war area. In 1915, C.J. Moore Brabazon invented the first purpose-built and practical aerial camera aided by the Thornton Pickard Company, greatly enhancing the efficiency of the aerial photography. Murray Brabazon also introduced the inclusion of stereoscopic techniques into aerial photography, thus permitting the height of the objects to be differentiated on the landscape by comparing the photographs taken at different angles. Coming to the next topic of commercial aerial photography as to how it developed, Francis Wills and Claude Graham White, who were the veterans of the World War I, founded the first commercial aerial photography company, Aerofilms Limited, in the United Kingdom in 1919. The aircraft manufacturing company, that is also called as the de Havilland Aircraft Company, hired an Airco DH-9 along with pilot entrepreneur Alan Cobham. Another successful breakthrough in commercial aerial photography was given by the American Sherman Fairchild, who started his own aircraft firm, Fairchild Aircraft, in 1935, specially for the purpose of aerial survey missions. Later on, Fairchild developed a high altitude camera with 9 lenses in one unit that could capture a photo of 600 square miles with each exposure from 30,000 feet. Fairchild also designed and developed airplanes with high wings and enclosed cabins as a more stable and protected platform for photography. This aerial map, that is, overlapping photographs of Manhattan Island, became a commercial success of Fairchild, which was later on used by several New York City agencies and businessmen. Coming to our next topic of aerial photography, which is basic concepts. So, the basic concepts of aerial photography, as I mentioned in our earlier slide, it includes various features such as camera, film, focal length, scale, resolution, ratio, overlap, and fiducial marks, besides stereoscopic coverage, roll and photo numbers, flight lines, and index maps. It also includes color mixing process. So, coming to the first topic of camera. In early days, the camera that was used for photography was no more than a light tight box with a pinhole at one end and the exposed light sensitive material fitted against the opposite end. Later on, this pinhole camera was replaced by a simple lens camera. The camera and their applicability for aerial photography are the simplest and the oldest of sensors exploited for remote sensing of the Earth's surface. The camera is a framing system which takes a near instantaneous snapshot of an area of the surface. The camera systems are passive optical sensors that use a lens to form an image at the focal plane, the plane at which an image is precisely defined. The next one is film. The film that is most common is black and white film. This is used in aerial photos. However, infrared color and false color infrared film are also used for certain special projects. The photographic films are sensitive to light from zero point 0.3 microns to zero point 0.9 microns in wavelength, which includes the ultraviolet light, the visible light, as well as the near infrared light. Panchromatic films are sensitive to the ultraviolet and the visible portions of the spectrum. The panchromatic film is the most common type of film used in aerial photography and produces black and white images. The next concept is focal length. Focal length is the distance from the middle of the camera lens to the focal plane, that is the film, and is calculated after calibration of the camera. With the increase in focal length, image distortion decreases. The relationship between the focal length, object distance, and image distance is given below in the equation, where 1 by f is 1 by o plus 1 by I. Here O stands for object distance, I stands for image distance, and f stands for focal length. The next topic is exposure, which is generally explained as at any point in the image. This is determined by the irradiance at that point multiplied by the exposure time. This has been expressed in equation 2 as E is equal to S d square T divided by 4F square. Here E is the exposure, S is the scene brightness, D is the diameter of the lens opening, T is the exposure time, F is the focal length of the lens. From equation 2, it can be seen that the exposure varies with respect to shutter speed d and or the diameter of the lens opening d. The various combinations of d and t, that is the exposure time as well as the diameter of the lens opening, will produce equivalent exposures for a given camera. Now coming to the next concept, that is scale. Scale is the ratio of distance between 2 points on a photo to the actual distance between the same 2 points on the ground. That is 1 unit on the photo equals x units on the ground. Another method that is used to verify and evaluate the scale of a photo is to determine the ratio between the camera's focal length and the plane's altitude above the ground being filmed. Unit equivalent, representative fraction, and ratio are some of the ways that can be used to express the scale. For example, a photographic scale of 1 millimeter on the image represents 25 meters on the ground. This would be expressed as follows. First is unit equivalent. It says that 1 millimeter is equal to 25 meters. Representative fraction would be given as 1 divided by 25,000. The ratio would be represented as 1 is to 25,000. So accordingly, this scale can be large or small. For a large scale, these large scale based photos cover small regions in greater detail. For example, the ratio of 1 is to 25,000 image. A large scale photograph means that the ground features are expressed in more detailed size at large. The area of ground coverage on the photograph is less than at smaller scales. Next is small scale. This is the reverse of large scale. Here the photos that are captured on small scale cover ground features of large regions or areas but in less detail. The area of ground coverage captured on the photo is greater than that at larger scales. An example for 1 is to 50,000 scale is given here. For example, focal length by altitude above ground level, the ratio is 152 mm by 7600 mm. So a variety of photographic scales such as 1 is to 3000 large scales of selected areas and 1 is to 50,000 small scales are available at the National Air Photo Library. The scale at a point on a truly vertical photograph is given by S is equal to F upon capital H minus small h. Here S is the photographic scale at a point. F is the camera focal length. Capital H is the flying height above datum. Small h represents the elevation above datum of the point. The next concept is overlap, which is the amount by which one photograph comprises the area covered by another photograph and is expressed as a percentage. The photo survey is designed to get 30% lateral overlap between photos on adjacent flight lines and 60% forward overlap, that is between photos along the same flight line. Next concept is a very important one, which is fiducial marks. These are small registration marks that are exposed on the edges of a photograph. The measurement of distances between fiducial marks are precisely done when a camera is calibrated, and such information is being used during compilation of topographic map by cartographers. As you can see in this figure, the fiducial marks are represented at the edges of the photograph. The next concept is stereoscopic coverage. It is the representation of the three-dimensional view which results when the two overlapping photos that are known as stereo pair are viewed with the help of a stereoscope. Each photograph of the stereo pair offers a slightly different view of the same area, which the brain merges and interprets as a three-dimensional view. Roll and photo numbers is a type of identification number which allows searching of the photo in the NAPL's archive. Besides metadata information, the plane's altitude, the focal length of the camera, and the weather conditions. Each photograph is assigned a unique index number according to the photo's roll and frame. The next concept is flight lines and index maps. The contractor of aerial survey plots the location of the first, last, and every fifth photo center along with its roll and frame number on a national topographic system map. Photo centers are represented by small circles and straight lines are drawn linking the circles to show photos on the same flight line. This graphical representation is known as Air Photo Index Map, which allows the photos to relate with their corresponding geographical location. On NTS map sheets, small scale photographs are indexed as 1 is to 2,50,000 scale, and larger scale photographs are indexed on 1 is to 50,000 scale NTS maps. Now we shall be discussing a very important and interesting concept of color mixing process. The color mixing is very important for an observer to see the real true colored picture of the landscape. The trichromatic theory of color vision explains that when blue, green and red elements are stimulated by different amount of light, we perceive color just like the phenomena behind the rod cells and the cone cells of the human eye. The red, green and blue are termed as additive primaries, whereas yellow, magenta and cyan are known as complementary colors of blue, green and red light. There is a concept called hue cancellation method which states that when certain colors are mixed together, the resulting colors are not what we would be intuitively expecting. For example, when red and green are mixed together, the resultant color is yellow and it's not reddish green. Thus, there are two types of color mixing: additive and subtractive color mixing. Let's see what these are. The first one is additive mixing. The superimposition of two beams of light corresponds to additive mixing. The additive mixing of colors is unintuitive as it does not relate to the mixing of physical substances, which would correspond to subtractive mixing. Regardless of being unintuitive, it is theoretically simpler than subtractive mixing. In the absence of color, the result is black. If all three primary colors, that is red, blue and green, are showing, the result is white. When red and green colors are combined, the result is yellow, and with that of red and blue, the result is magenta. For blue and green combination, the result is cyan. That is why these are called as complementary colors. Additive mixing is used in television and computer monitors to produce a wide range of colors using only three primary colors. A pixel is a combination of the three primary colors. Projection televisions usually have three projectors, one for each primary color. Subtractive mixing. The mixing of physical substances corresponds to subtractive color mixing. Therefore, it corresponds to our perception about mixing colors. In subtractive mixing of color, the absence of color is white and the presence of all three primary colors is black. By convention, the three primary colors in subtractive mixing are yellow, magenta and cyan. The secondary colors are the same as the primary colors from additive mixing and vice versa. Subtractive mixing is used to create a range of colors when printing on paper by combining a small number of ink colors and also when painting. Upon mixing yellow and white, green color is produced, and with that of red and yellow, orange is produced. The color film photography relies on the principle of subtractive color mixture using superimposed yellow, magenta and cyan dyes, that is the subtractive primaries, to control the proportionate amount of green, blue and red light that reaches the eye. Therefore, the subtractive mixing of yellow, magenta and cyan dyes on a photograph is used to control the additive mixture of blue, green and red light reaching the observer. To achieve this, color film is manufactured with three immersion layers that are sensitive to blue, green and red light but contain yellow, magenta and cyan dye after processing. The next concept in this aerial photography is of filters. The use of filters or color screens has been very frequent in ordinary landscape photography. With the help of filters, a selective wavelength of light reflected from the scene is allowed to reach the image plane, that is, the film. They are placed in front of the lens in the optical path of a camera. Filters are often used for the purpose of correct brightness rendering calculated for a given color sensitive plate so that the resultant feedback to the light of the spectrum copies the sensitiveness of the eye, which is greatest in the yellow green. Such filters for use with the common orthochromatic plates are of a general yellow color. The filters used in aerial cameras consist of organic dyes suspended in glass or in dried gelatin film. The most commonly used filters are absorption filters, which allow differentiation of objects with nearly similar spectral response patterns in major portions of the photographic spectrum. Neutral density filter, popularly called as ND filter, is possibly the most useful filter in the aerial photography. This filter is a sunglass lens for the camera, decreasing light levels without altering color or having any other side effects. The camera filters are of two types: screw-on filters, which come in different sizes related to different lenses of the camera. A lens with a 52mm mount can only work with a 55mm filters. The second type of filter is a sheet of glass which goes down into lens adapters. The glass itself can be used with adapters of all sizes and the adapters are fairly cheap. Now coming to the types of aerial photography. The first category of the types is oblique aerial photograph. Oblique photographs are those photographs that are taken at certain angle with respect to the ground surface. That is, it is not directly overhead as in vertical, as can be seen in the figure. The photograph taken at low angles are known as low oblique photographs, whereas those taken at high or steep angles are known as high or steep oblique photographs that include the horizon. Both low and high oblique can be taken as wide shots or close-ups. The next category is vertical aerial photograph. Vertical photographs are taken straight down with the camera tipping directly down at 90 degree or with almost less than 3 degree tilt to its center point and cover relatively a smaller area. In the viewfinder, all the four corners of the ground framed must be more or less at equidistant from the film sensor plane. This helps in producing a map-like perspective and permits the consequential photograph to be scaled and dimensions taken from it. True verticals are proven to be very useful in mapping and should be considered as a series of overlapping images or mosaics. The vertical photographs are chiefly used in image interpretation and photogrammetry. Next category is orthorectified vertical aerial photograph. In this type of aerial photograph, all the geographical and topographical distortions are removed from a true vertical image and have been corrected optically. The orthorectified photo is a simulation of a photograph captured from an infinite distance looking directly down to Nadir. While capturing the photograph of a landscape, distortions occur as a result of defective optical lenses and digital sensors, the tilt of the camera or sensor relative to the ground, or other aspects. The images cannot be used for mapping and scale its measurement, which are not orthorectified. Orthorectified photos are commonly used in geographic information systems and cartography to create maps. These images can be broadly deployed once after their alignment or registration with known coordinates. These orthophotos are extensively used in online mapping systems, such as Google Maps. The Google Earth overlays satellite imagery or orthophotos over a digital elevation model, that is DEM, to simulate 3D landscapes. Another one is trimetrogon, which is a combination of three photographs captured at the same time, one vertical and two obliques, in a direction at 90° to the line of light. The obliques are captured at an angle of 60° from the vertical, side lap the vertical photography, and resulting composites from horizon to horizon. Thus, mapping is the next one, which is a type of aerial photography in which two or more vertical photos are joined or mosaic to produce a larger area. In combination, depending on the purpose, the combination can be done in several ways. A few are listed below. The first one is panoramas. They are often produced by stitching several photographs overlapping and adjacent images captured or coupled with computer software with one handheld camera. A loose term usually referring to an exceptionally wide shot which includes a large area of the horizontal view. In pictometry, one vertical and four low oblique photos are produced by five rigidly mounted cameras, and such images can be used together. The next category is aerial videography. Aerial video is becoming more popular with innovative approaches and advancements in video technology. With the help of GPS, video may be incorporated with metadata and afterward synced with a video mapping program. The aerial videos are emerging spatial multimedia which can be used for understanding of scenes and tracking of objects. Such spatial multimedia is the appropriate and timely bound combination of digital media that includes still photography, stereo, motivation video, panoramic imagery sets, audio, immersive media constructs, and other data with date, time, and location information from the global positioning system. The combination of digital video, global positioning system, that is GPS, and automated image processing will help in improving the accuracy and cost effectiveness of data collection and reduction. Now, since we have discussed the basic concept of aerial photography, the types of films that are used deserve a special mention. So, accordingly, the films that are widely used in aerial photography include infrared, panchromatic, color, and camouflage detection films. In infrared films, it's a black and white film that is sensitive to infrared waves that can be used to detect artificial camouflage materials and to capture photographs at night if there is infrared radiation. The next one is panchromatic film. It is used in the average handheld small camera. This film is commonly used in aerial photography, which records the amount of reflected light from objects in tones of grey running from white to black. In colored film, it is the same as that used in the average handheld camera and is timely dependent. It is limited in its use as it requires time to process and its need for clear sunny weather. The fourth one is camouflage detection film. It's a special type of film that helps in recording natural vegetation in a reddish color. When artificial camouflage materials are photographed, they appear purple or bluish. So, after studying the basic concepts and the types of aerial photography, let's look briefly at some of the applications of aerial photography. It can be useful in infinite number of ways. Some of these are discussed here. The first one is environmental protection of nature and wildlife. Aerial photography provides a great deal of benefits related to the environment by means of documentation of activities or situation and monitoring its change over time with the help of aerial photos in order to raise awareness through campaigning. Through such efforts, public opinion can influence or guide the willingness of government to integrate environmental data into existing plans, policies, and regulations in order to guard the environment. Destruction of wildlife habitat frequently happening due to unorganized, uncoordinated, and defectively planned land development has been a major cause of threat to the environment and the wildlife. Here, this aerial photography can be a useful aid. Next application is geography and cartography. Aerial photography has been considered as an essential part of cartography, that is, the process of map making in the modern era. The aerial photos offer a straightforward or easy depiction of the physical and cultural landscape of a region at a given time. These aerial photos, after interpretation, provide a symbolic and pictorial basis frequently critical for the studies by ecologists, historians, geographers, geologists, archaeologists, and other professionals. Land cover and land use classification is another aspect. These aerial photographs are being frequently used for land use, land cover information for regional scale planning and development. These aerial photos, after registration and digitization, can be used to classify the ground features and evaluate the changes in area. It is also known as change detection analysis. The next application is agriculture as well as precision agriculture. Aerial photographs facilitate more precise interventions and techniques in the field of agriculture. Being a farming management notion, precision agriculture is based on observing and reacting to intra-field variations. The precision agriculture depends on modern technologies like aerial imagery and information technology besides global positioning system. In surveillance and monitoring system, if we have to monitor Earth on a large scale, the aerial photos are used to integrate and complement satellite images in order to validate the interpretation of data. And in situations of rapid changes, aerial photos on small scale can directly provide with constant information to the existing surveillance system. They can also feed surveillance functions of vast properties, frontiers, and maritime domains. With the help of systems such as APTER, the aerial photos would provide key information in surveillance in special situations such as regional violence or civil unrest, where observatory mechanism and other related resources are limited. Next is tourism. For some countries, the tourism is backbone of their economy, and therefore aerial photography can play a significant role in tourism promotion. The tourism industry is composed of ecotourism and leisure industries presently who use aerial photography for fresh presentation and proposal strategies. The aerial photos are used for promotion of tourism and their main resource assets, which consists of a unique landscape and attractive scenery, remarkable cultural heritage, sports activities, facilities, and other services. All the organizations and agencies who deal with tourism use aerial photography as one of the main tools to nourish their business. Hotels, resorts, tour guides, and travel agents use aerial photos for their advertisement and tourism activities to gain information related to business spots or desired location. Engineering and urban planning. The concept of smart cities, high profile development of urban sectors is the need of the modern age. Therefore, the aerial photos have proven to be very important and have gained esteem among the developers, planners, and engineers for mapping at small scale for the purpose of urban and land development. Integration of information obtained from aerial photos with GIS mapping is very useful for the analysis, strategic planning, and evaluation in planning and engineering of urban sectors. Climate change is one of the most threatening factors for the survival of humans, flora and fauna, glaciers, forests, and other natural resources. In order to combat with drawbacks of climate change, it is very important to monitor the climate changes on regular intervals. The aerial photographs play such a role in monitoring the changes that could occur in natural landscape such as the melting of glaciers, shrinking of forests and water bodies, drought, expansion of settlements and other commercial setups. Therefore, it's very essential for the researchers to collect information and maintain records in changes over different seasons and years to follow the effects of climate change and associated risks to ecosystems. For example, the given figure shows the changes in the landscape once during 1940 and the image during 2006. Comparing these two images of a glacial region shows the how the glaciers have changed over period of time. Another application that is somehow not related to environment but can be included here is journalism. In the past few decades, aerial photos have been used more frequently to carry out the practice of investigation and reporting of incidents, events, and they also provide precise information about a geographical idea of a particular location and explore the information given to the public. In other earth sciences streams, the aerial photographs can be very useful to investigate the mechanism of natural changes such as variations in land resources, precipitation and geological applications over time that may lead to disasters such as droughts or landslides. So after understanding these applications, let's once understand what are the advantages of these aerial photography over ground-based observations. These aerial photographs, they provide an advanced vantage point. It also offers a permanent recording facility. For example, if stored properly, an aerial photograph once taken can be analyzed even after hundreds or 200 or 300 years. It has a broader spectral sensitivity than the human eye. For example, as we discussed in the slides, human eye can only capture in the visible range of the electromagnetic spectrum. However, aerial photography also includes ultraviolet and infrared region besides the visible region. It also provides a better spatial resolution and geometric fidelity than several ground-based sensing methods. So, at the end of the module, I hope students you would have appreciated and understood the basic concept of aerial photography. You would also have understood the concepts such as scale, resolution, camera, films and stereoscopic coverage besides the color mixing processes that are used in aerial photography. I hope you would also have appreciated the history and the developments that have taken place in the field of aerial photography. As you all know, it's an important aspect of remote sensing that helps us in acquiring the remotely sensed data. So the advantages of aerial photography over ground based conventional methods of acquiring data cannot be overlooked. Besides, this aerial photography has a wide range of applications and I hope you all would appreciate these applications both in the field of social sciences as well as environmental sciences. I hope you all will be benefited from this module. Thank you.